How you doing? Thanks everyone for your emails over the last week. The vast majority of you actually sent emails regarding CVs. So this week we will focus on 6 tips that we should look at when preparing a CV. Another person also mentioned on tips for finding work during December and how best to use one's time. So we'll look at that in the next blog. So moving on to CVs, 6 tips to have a better CV. Number 1, ask yourself the question, what are your personal traits? Are you a motivated person? Are you a great team player? Are you always happy? Are you extremely dedicated? What are your personal traits? And make sure that you're actually conveying them within your CV as well. Number 2, profile at the beginning of the CV. I think putting a personal profile at the beginning of the CV is a really good thing to do. It sets the tone and it lets the reader have a good introduction about what you're about before they get into the body of the CV itself. So it can work as a nice signpost on why you're suitable for a position. So often with cover letters getting lost, a personal profile is a good thing to do. So personal profile number 2. Number 3, what separates you from everyone else? So what are your unique selling points? For example, are you extremely analytical? Do you have an exceptional sales record? What makes you a better candidate than anyone else? So ask yourself, what are your unique selling points? Number 4, start with your most recent work experience. So often I see CVs coming through that have just been updated from the last job, and someone spent about 5 minutes just tagging on 4 or 5 lines about their most recent job. Make sure that you do your CV and your education with your most recent position or your most recent qualification first and work to your first one. Number 5, read your CV and get other friends and family to read your CV and ask yourself the very critical question: if I received this CV, would I invite myself to interview? So often we don't put ourselves on the side of the employer. And I think if we did, sometimes we would actually be aware that our CV is far weaker than it should be. Last but certainly not least, make your CV as easy to follow as possible. Don't have too many long-winded paragraphs, as much bullet points as possible, as much white space as possible to make it effortless for the person that's screening your CV to look at. I mean, realistically, they said your average employer spends 60 seconds screening a CV. It's probably 30 at the moment, 30 seconds. So make your CV as easy to read as possible. Lots of white space and bullet points. And that's the end of the 6 tips for a better CV. I hope they've been of some use to you, and don't forget to drop me an email if you have any questions or queries. Take care. Bye-bye.